Thank you for joining my American History Notes, where I discuss conclusions I've drawn, excuse me, from studying American history. Now, I don't expect you to agree with all my conclusions, but I do expect you, if you want to be conversant in American history, to at least know about the topics that I'm discussing and to have your own opinions drawn from conclusions that you've made by reading not only historians, but also primary sources, letters, journals, laws, newspaper accounts, things like that. So we're still discussing slavery. I've been reading a paper that I wrote that I published on self-published on academia.edu, not peer-reviewed. This is my own conclusions on why white Southern Baptist Southerners, I shouldn't say Southern Baptists, that was not a denomination that existed when I'm talking very much of the time I'm talking about, but why did Southerners who were white and Baptist, why did they go from being opposed to slavery generally to being for slavery and arguing for it? And we're discussing that. Today, we're going to go over some socioeconomic and cultural conditions that led to this. Owning slaves in the Southern economy was a prime way of securing personal wealth and passing it on to your descendants, thereby securing their wealth. The value of slaves increased as an investment when the overseas slave trade became illegal. And you can read about that in Kenneth Stamp's book, famous book, very classic book, The Peculiar Institution, Slavery in the Antebellum South. And that's New York, Random House, 1956. Now, as slaves could not be imported, they became more valuable as individuals, and it was necessary to protect one's investment more so than it had been when slaves' lives were cheap and easily replaced. And for evangelical concerns about passing down slaves to the next generation, see Hireman's book, The Southern Cross, page 155. For problems for Baptists who did not approve of slavery, acquiring slaves by marriage, see Jeremiah Bell Jeter's personal account, Recollections of a Long Life, published by the Religious Herald Company in 1891 in Richmond, page 68. For moving up the social scale by acquiring slaves, see Susan C. Andrews and James P. Fenton's article, Archaeology and the Invisible Man, the Role of Slavery in the Production of Wealth and Social Class in the Bluegrass region of Kentucky, 1820 to 1870, in the World Archaeology Journal, volume 32, number 1. And then for slave price increases, see Peter C. Mankell's article, Slave Prices in the South Carolina Economy, 1722 to 1809, in the Journal of Economic History. So as the 18th century came to a close, Southern Baptist Southern as in geographical reason, not the denomination, Southern Baptist congregations that contain both black and white congregants tended more toward segregation in worship than they had been. This may have been a function of Baptists reaching out to slaveholding gentry for acceptance. As slave owners slowly became members of Baptist churches, black congregants were excluded more and more, and black congregations formed which did not generally contain whites. I refer you to Charles D. Mallory's Memoirs of Elder Edmund Botsford, W. Riley Company, 1832. Now, Baptist ministers were in the 18th century typically lacking a formal education except for a knowledge of the Bible, and that information is also from Mallory. Um, there grew an awareness that to compete with other denominations and to be accepted by upper levels of society, there was a need for better and more consistent standards of education for Baptist ministers. Theological schools and universities were founded to meet this perceived need. In these schools, Baptist ministers to be came in contact with the sons of the slave owning aristocracy of the South, and the hesitancy to accept slavery as morally okay was watered down by the desire to achieve status and acceptance in the greater Southern culture. I recommend you read B.F. Riley's A History of the Baptists in the Southern States East of the Mississippi, Philadelphia American Baptist Publication Society, 1898, page 131. As Baptists reached for a higher level of social acceptance, They also acquired other Southern cultural traits, such as Southern conceptions of honor and manhood. And this is discussed also in Harmon and the Southern Cross. The rise of radical Northern abolitionism, seen as a direct threat to the culture of the South, inspired this notion of honor and pride that was now a fundamental part of the Baptist character of Southerners, as Southerners. And you can just see this discussed in Richard Fuller and Francis Wayland's letters back and forth. Domestic Slavery, considered as a scriptural institution, edited by Nathan A. Finn and Keith Harper, Mercer University Press, 2008. In this way, with personal wealth being made more abundant by owning slaves as a sign of prosperity, and an increase in slave owning membership, and a resulting influence as the members of Baptist churches ruled the church organization, and now you have more slave owners in the congregation, the ideology of Baptists began to change. With education assuring the enculturation process for Baptist ministers and the desire to be accepted by the ruling elite, the conversation changed to justifications of slavery, the need to defend the Southern culture as a point of honor against the contempt of Northern abolitionists, and eventually Northern society in general, became a rallying cry for hurt Southern and therefore Southern Baptist pride. Again, not the denomination. We're not talking about the denomination. You can read Edward R. Crowther's article, Holy Honor, Sacred and Secular in the Old South, in the Journal of Southern History, November 1992. So the notions of honor are inextricably linked to the biblical justification for slavery, which I'm going to discuss next. Finally, economic and social demands turned the Baptist mind from negative views on slavery to a desire to justify it as part of their move into the culture for which they had once expressed contempt. Now we're going to talk about next how they justified slavery with the Bible. And I thank you for paying attention, for watching, and wish you to have a good day.